All right, everybody, what is going on? Good afternoon. We've got a little bit more off-season content I want to take a look at here. So, obviously, we're just not even 3 weeks away from the start of the regular season. So, if you've got off-season content, now is the time to make sure it's out there. Now is the time to make sure that it is being put in front of people. And in the case of this particular article, which is most certainly off-season coded content, it got published yesterday. So Mike Clay, one of the writers for ESPN, ranked every positional group in the NFL from best to worst. So 1 to 32 going into the 2026 NFL season. And we've seen articles like this on other publications, but I want to see what Mike Clay has, want to see what he thinks, and we'll compare it to our experience as fans of this team. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So this is kind of like what Pro Football Focus did, little bit different, but same basic idea. The results are obviously going to be different. You'd expect every person who does this to do things a little bit differently, but it's also not quite the same thing as what ESPN did earlier in the offseason, where they had a bunch of people vote. And by people, I mean executives, coaches, and scouts on who the best players were at each position. This is a little bit different. Theoretically, you should be capturing depth here. So let's go one by one and come to a ruling here. Properly rated, overrated, or underrated. And we're going to start with a quarterback here. And right away, we've got a big problem. The Seattle Seahawks rank 18th in quarterback. So that is the bottom half of the league. That is below teams like Detroit and Jacksonville, Tampa Bay, Philadelphia, Denver. And, I got to just throw up my hands and wonder, what does Sam Darnold have to do? Like, we are one spot ahead of the Giants with Jackson Dart and Jameis Winston. And I guess Jameis Winston's a pretty good backup quarterback, but I don't think this listing took backup quarterback into that strong of a consideration. Because I think if they did, we'd probably be a little bit higher than this, because we have a very favorable backup quarterback situation. We are one of a few teams that has both a quality veteran and an upside guy, a guy with potential. So 18th implies we are below average at quarterback. Sam Darnold has made 2 Pro Bowls in a row. He's won 28 regular season games and 3 playoff games over the last 2 years. He has done it on 2 different teams with 2 different sets of teammates and 2 different offenses, even if the 2 offenses are somewhat similar. What am I missing here? I understand that he's not an elite quarterback. He's not. There are many quarterbacks out there that are better than him. But to say that he is in the bottom half of the league is highly suspect. And if you throw Locke and Milroe into the equation, I think this becomes even a little bit worse. But again, this is just going to be one of those things where Sam Darnold's going to have to do it one more year to really get that respect. So the only way I could maybe spin this would be, well, Sam Darnold's older than some of these guys. Like a guy like Bo Nix is younger than Sam Darnold. Caleb Williams younger than Sam Darnold. But what about Jared Goff? Jared Goff's older than Sam Darnold, right? If you're talking about, oh, it's a youth thing, then I still don't think that cuts the mustard here. So 1 positional ranking, not impressed. Already really bad. Already don't understand it. And I guess it's going to take 1 more good season by Sam. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer. Best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today, and remember to always gamble responsibly. All right, next up, we've got running back. And here the Seahawks came in 26th. And I actually think that's probably a little too high. And I understand that Jadarian Price has gotten good reviews so far from training camp. But I really think if you put it all together, you're talking about a rookie, a kind of a veteran backup. I can't call him a journeyman, but Emmanuel Wilson, obviously largely unproven in the NFL. He's had like 2 good games. George Halani, who's never really had a good game in the NFL. He's had good plays. And then whatever we get from Zach Charbonnet this year, which is kind of an unknown right now. I know he's going to play at some point. How good is he going to be? So 26, I actually think is a little bit on the high side. I think we probably should be bottom 5. So yeah, quarterback, we were very underrated, but here I think we might be a little bit overrated personally, probably bump us down a few spots. We actually got the write-up here. We were the unit to watch, according to Mike Clay. Walker signed with the Chiefs. Charbonnet tore his ACL, leaving Seattle's backfield with a much different look in 2026. Rookie Jadarian Price could emerge as a breakout, but unknown and minimal experience as a pass catcher. So if he does actually prove to be a quality pass catcher in the NFL the way he looks in camp so far, that would go a long way in boosting this ranking. And then Halani and Wilson until Charbonnet make his return. So they are identifying that as an important group to watch, but not really, best or worst necessarily, anything like that. So I look at this and I think they're close. And I think that we could end up earning this ranking, but as of right now, I would say bottom 5. Wide receiver. Wide receiver, they put a 6th. I think that is appropriate. You look at the teams that are ahead of us, I think that pretty much makes sense. Like Detroit, it's close, right? You got Amon-Ra, you've got Jamison Williams, you've got Isaac Tesla, who I really like. That's a tight competition here. And one thing going on with the Seahawks is Cooper Kupp is having a really good camp and looks like he might have a better season, or at least a more effective season than he did last year. If that's the case and you throw him in with Shaheed and whatever we get from Horton, it could be in the top 5, but 6th, I think, is probably about right. So here, I think this is good. That is appropriate. Tight end, they put us 18th, same as quarterback. And again, like quarterback, I got to say, I think you're missing this a little bit here. I know A.J. Barner doesn't put up big numbers, but no tight end is realistically going to put up big numbers in this offense with JSN taking all the targets. A.J. Barner still does very well with the opportunities he gets as a receiver, and he's also one of the best PE1 blockers in football. A lot of the other tight ends that are good blockers are nothings as receivers. So for a guy like A.J. Barner to have 500 yards and 50 catches in a run-first offense, with JSN taking such a big share of the load, I think that's the guy who should probably be considered a top half of the league tight end. And I understand that Arroyo is not necessarily ready to be bought yet. I understand if Mike Clay doesn't think Elijah Arroyo is a needle mover yet, and Eric Saubert's a relatively generic block first tight end. So I get that. That's fine. But even if you don't get pumped about those guys, I do think that A.J. Barner's effectiveness alone should be boosting this up several spots. So this one, I'm going to say we are underrated. Okay, moving on from that, the offensive line, they do the whole offensive line as a unit. And the Seahawks are 8th. That's right, the top quartile. They are 8th out of 32 teams with their offensive line. Now, this one's a little bit complicated. If you're talking about the unit as a whole in context, I think that's probably about right. It's pretty close anyway. If you're talking about individual talent levels of the players one by one, I think this is a little overshooting it. I think we should be closer to like 11 or 12. Because to me, the big strength of this offensive line is the fact that players all know each other and there's a lot of continuity and they know how to play with each other. So you've got 5 starters returning from last year. That is something that most teams do not have. And that is the reason why I think they'll be a really good unit this year. So if you're looking at it that way, sure. But if you're talking about it in terms of like the individual players, then I think this is a little bit of an overshoot, but close. So it's all a matter of perspective. So onto the defense now, and Seattle does very well where you would expect the interior defensive line. So the interior defensive line is number 1 in all of football, and you get the write-up because they do rank the number 1 and number 32 teams with a write-up. Second year in a row, we've had the best interior defensive line in football, best defense in football last year by scoring, third in the league in run-stop win rate. Leonard Williams, 18 sacks over the past 2 seasons. Byron Murphy, 7 sacks last year. And then they shout out Jaron Reed as well. Note they do not mention Riley Mills. If Riley Mills does what a lot of us think he's going to do this year and becomes, at the very least, a crucial, valuable rotational piece, then you are head and shoulders above anybody else. Like the second place team is Baltimore. Then you've got Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, the LA Rams. Like it's a boat race if you get good stuff out of Mills. And if Mills steps up and Jaron Reed kind of becomes a player coach and doesn't really give you much on the field, then you're staying in the same place. So either way, we win. So I think this is appropriate. I think we've got clearly the best interior defensive line in football. I don't think it's particularly close either. So this is properly rated. Edge rusher, next up. Seattle came in at 24th. And I believe this is also appropriately rated. Ultimately, edge rusher is a position that is partially driven by depth, unlike some of these other ones, but it is still a position where you are much better off having superstars. The superstars tend to drive the conversation, and we don't have one. Unless you count DeMarcus Lawrence, and even if you do, I think age-related regression will probably drag him down a little bit this year. So I think this is probably about right, because there's a lot of unknowns as well. Uchenna Nwosu, is he out of gas, or did he just run out of gas in the second half of the season last year and refuel in the offseason? Because the second half of the year, he was not nearly as effective a player against the pass. So if he can get back to the first half of the season last year, then I think you're in good shape. But if you end up getting second half of the year Uchenna Nwosu, he's just kind of a run stopper. And that's fine, but there's only so much value you can put there. Dante Fowler's older as well, and Derek Hall has stuff to prove this season after only having 2 regular season sacks last year. So I think this is probably about right. Maybe it should be a tiny bit higher just because we go 4 deep with good guys, but that's only going to get you so far in a conversation like this. So I think that's probably the right idea. Off-ball linebacker, another one very underrated. We ranked 24th here. I don't know what Ernest Jones has to do. He made the All-Pro team, led this team in tackles, was one of the spearheads of the best run defense in football, and the green dot of the best defense in football overall. And somehow, some way, they just don't think he's any good. Like, look at some of these linebacker groups they have ahead of us. Like, I know Broncos fans, all they do is complain about their linebackers, and yet they're 2 spots ahead of Seattle. And this says nothing about Drake Thomas or the fact that we have a really good backup in Tyrese Knight. So, yeah, no way, no how. 24th, not even close. Honestly, I think we should be in the top half at least. Even if you want to say, well, you don't have, the elite of the elite. You don't have, maybe you're saying like Jack Campbell or Zach Bond or Fred Warner. Those guys, you don't have one of those guys. We have a guy that's not that far off in terms of effectiveness and impact. So absolutely not. Not in a million years. Cornerback is next up here. Cornerback. Seattle came in 5th. And here, I think this is probably overshooting things a little bit again. I think this is a little overrated. Evan Witherspoon does a lot of heavy lifting. He's one of the best corners in football. I get that. But when you take a look at how much Seattle has been kind of scrambling at cornerback the last few weeks, that doesn't sound to me like a cornerback room I would put in the top 5 of the NFL. So I don't know about this one. To me, You get past Witherspoon. Job is a good number 2, but just a good one, not special, not stand out. And I don't think you include Eamon Worry here, so then what do you have? You've got Noah Igbenogany, who's having a good camp, but he's a journeyman. You've got Nehemiah Pritchett, who's having a good camp, but he's unproven and a former 5th-round pick. A little bit limited there. And you've got Julian Neal, who's probably not ready to play football at all yet. And then you've got 2 other rookies that are 7th-round picks. So I don't see how that's 5th, unless you're including Eamon Worry, and I don't think they are. So, yeah, a little bit overrated here. I don't think Witherspoon by himself pushes us here. I would take this down a few notches. And finally, safety. Safety, Seattle came in 8th. I think we're underrated here. I would boost this up a few spots because I believe that this ranking does include Nick Eamon Worry. So you've got Eamon Worry. You've also got Julian Love, who is really good. And it feels like the world has forgotten how good Julian Love is. And the reason why I say that is because he only played half the season last year, but that doesn't change the fact that he's a really good player. And he was phenomenal when he did play. So I feel like people are memory holing him just because of the fact that he wasn't present for half the season last year. But in my mind, that is a borderline elite safety. And then you've got Eamon Worry. Even if you're not super high on Okada, which, by the way, at the very least, Okada is a capable player. At least he can be at least a workable starter. I think our safety room's a little bit better than that. Okay, so that is it. They didn't do special teams. Overall, they put us 5th, which, again, feels like you're shooting a little bit short here, but it's the right idea, right? 5th is still really good. If you're in the top 5, you're in a good spot. And I think we all understand that this team, one of the reasons why they're so good is they have amazing coaching. Their coaching probably makes them better than the sum of their parts. But still, I look at some of these rankings and I scratch my head a little bit. Especially quarterback, especially linebacker. Like, there's some stuff here that I don't even think is close. But let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Probably another video later, although it is probably going to be a slower day because it's Saturday before a game. So we'll see what happens, but go Hawks, and that's what Mike Clay thinks.